Go for it, Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric, and we are Two Hard Questions. And today our guest speaker is Amat, a men's right activist. And to set the stage, I'd like to give him the floor to describe himself.
Thanks very much, Eric. Hi, everyone. I am men's rights activist. I am working for the issues of men. I have an NGO, Vastav Foundation, in India, in Mumbai. We have been working to highlight the issues of men. We have deposed to the parliament. We keep on creating awareness. We run a suicide helpline. I think that is the only privately run suicide helpline exclusively for men in the world. We have about 100 volunteers on that, and we take a lot of calls from men who are on the brink of suicide, and we've been able to help them a lot. We do conduct weekly meetings for free for people where in parks and gardens where people come in and they present their issues, and we just help them with whatever
Splendid.
thing.
And to probe a little bit, how many men do you work with on an annual basis?
On an annual basis, it's difficult to put a mark on a number, but then in our city, Mumbai, we have about 150 people coming in every week. But even if we consider about 20% of them are new cases every week, so you can consider that somewhere around 1,500 people only with one city. Like that, we have about 50 NGOs in different cities. So that's how we work. I mean, that's a huge scale that we work on.
That is a large scale, and thank you for sharing. And we'd like to provoke you with some stimulating questions. And I'm going to pass it over to Gerard to ask our first stimulating question. Gerard?
Okay, well, actually, it was going to be Jesse was going to ask the first question. I've got the second question. So I'm going to handball it back over to Jesse.
You got
I'll take it. So nice to have you on and nice to meet you. It's very interesting work that you do. So my first question for you is, how does the caste system negatively affect men, and how does it play into Indian identity politics today? And to lead into that, if you wouldn't mind, for all of us that are not in India, if you'll just give a brief rundown of that system, of the caste system as well first.
Okay, that's a nice question. Thanks, Jesse. Firstly, the idea of the caste system, for those who don't know, the caste system as such was what we would call in these days, and it actually it started. It wasn't about oppression or one-upmanship of one community over the other. It was what we call as division of labor. So there is a priest community, which is like in the social order, it will be considered as the topmost, but they are not supposed to gather wealth. So economically, they are not the strongest. They are more on the knowledge. Their work is to understand knowledge, gain knowledge and distribute knowledge. The second community that comes is the warrior caste, the Kshatriyas. That particular community, it had to always obey the priests, in terms of religion and in terms of knowledge. So there is the political knowledge, there is scientific knowledge, there is medicinal knowledge. They have to respect the priest caste and they have to learn from them. But their responsibility is to protect the society, protect the community. All the communities, not their own community. So it could be protection from anything. It could be an external army, protecting their own borders, protecting their people from calamities, any attack from animals or so on. Then there is a third community, which is the trading community. Those are called the Vaishyas. Those people had the primary role of creating wealth for the society. They would get involved in trading, generating wealth, and all these three communities, these are now considered more of as the upper castes. The Brahmins, the priest community, having that knowledge, their responsibility was to disseminate the knowledge that they have. Then the protectors had to protect everyone. The Vaishyas, they had to take care of the trade, the wealth creation. But the fourth community, which is the Shudras, which is the lowermost caste which is there, their role was to give service to the society. So any work where service is involved, that particular community people used to get involved in that. And everyone, they had to respect each other, and there was a balance that was maintained. But over time, what happened is, now one more thing was that this particular caste system was not birth based. It was like people, there was mobility within the caste system, that the king, he could actually pick up a trader who is strong enough and is good enough, and he can bring him to the upper caste of being protector. And the priest guys, they could bring someone who is knowledgeable and can disseminate knowledge to their community of priests. So that was when it was, in pristine form, very pure form, when it was being followed. And the Shudras also, the last one, they were also supposed to be respected. But over time, what happened is, people wanted to have their children in the same caste that they are, or in a better caste. So there began this rigidity of caste system. So the Brahmins, the priests, they always wanted their children to become Brahmins only, the priest caste only, so on. So that started to get copied all over. So in this case, what happened is, the lowest caste, it started to get neglected, it started to get oppressed a lot. And over a period of time, it became, there came a situation of untouchability. So there must be many reasons, for why this untouchability was practiced. But then it cannot be justified when you are oppressing someone and keeping people out of civilization, because eventually it came down to that. It must have started with what we call today as quarantine. Very interestingly, Indians were not supposed to travel by sea. I mean, there were seafaring Indians also, but particularly Brahmins, the priest caste, they were not supposed to seafare, because if they're going out, then they are amongst a lot of probably newer societies where they don't have that immunity, and many things, it could affect them. They come back and then they affect the society. So there were restrictions on each caste. But as we moved forward, where the operation started, in the sense that people wanted to secure their own interests, the last caste was oppressed a lot. They were kept, out of knowledge as well. I mean, they were not supposed to be given knowledge and so on. So what happened is, eventually, if we come down to today's scenario, all the difficult jobs where risk is involved, those went, primarily to men, but particularly to the lowest caste. So if we consider sewage workers, it was primarily a job of the lowest caste guys. And even till today, a lot of, sewage workers related work, I mean, sewage work and all, it is from that primary caste only. We see a lot of deaths of sewage workers also. So we keep on highlighting this part. Like in India, every year about 1,000 soldiers die from the army.
Can I interject just for a moment?
Yeah, sure.
Are you equating risk with danger? Because what you consider risk is dangerous physical danger, right?
Yes, I meant physical danger only. And when I say physical danger, it is also, I mean, if a sewage worker, he is entering the drain and getting it cleaned, or he is involved in manual scavenging. I mean, that is like the worst form of work that anybody could be forced to do. So when he is doing that, I mean, he is exposing himself to danger, danger of contracting diseases, and all kind of things that can affect his health. Not only his health, his family's health also. So when I was saying this, about, we have a lot of respect to soldiers who die on the borders, or soldiers who die fighting terrorists. We have about 1,000, 1,500 soldiers dying every year, and we have all kind of hoopla, because it is deserved, glorifying their death. And there is a lot of respect that their families also get. They get a lot of coverage in the media. But similarly, there are about 1,500 sewage workers dying every year in India. That is a huge number, and it goes completely unnoticed. So we try to highlight that this is as important as soldiering. I mean, If sewage workers go on a strike, then everybody will the whole city will just choke up. And, it is like closing your ass and then your brain is dead. So that's how the whole city will suffer. But we don't see much focus on this, and we try to highlight this, particularly from the caste perspective, because primarily these people who are working in sewage or even mining related stuff, jobs, or there are other jobs like I said, manual scavenging, which is still going on in some parts of India. So all these are particularly from the lowest caste people, and that is something that needs to be changed.
So
Can I
Amit,
ask?
just sorry, this was your question,
Yes.
Jess, but I just wanted to ask. I can see the caste system for me seems to almost parallel the gender paradigm, but on a much bigger scale. And in India, it kind of overlaps. So do you see that you have, women from an upper caste competing for oppression with men from a lower caste, or women from an upper caste trying to appropriate the oppression of a woman from a lower caste to project it onto herself? Do these kinds of things happen, or are these more a Western thing?
No, the system, how it will be in India is like, okay, in certain cases, the upper caste men will be having dominance over upper caste women in few cases. But when it comes to protection and provision, being protectors and providers, of course, the women and children are a priority that every man has to focus upon. The women and children will be protected first, definitely from the upper caste. Then the upper caste women as such, they have complete agency over, the kind of oppression that used to happen. It is more from the upper caste women being done on the lower caste men, because they used to interact a lot on the domestic levels also. So it is not as if like there is some gender, segregation when these caste, levels have been decided. It's all mixed up, but generally within the caste system, it would be the women who are considered on a higher scale. Even within the lowest caste, if we talk about the Shudras, within them also, we'll see a lot of women doing domestic chores. They will work as maids in people's houses, but they will still be protected from the risks, any kind of risks that will be happening on their immunity or their health and so on. So it has been always a part of our civilization. That women have to be protected because they reproduce children. They are responsible. They are more important for the continuation of the species. So they have that advantage in one way. That's the reason they are protected from many dangers. It's the same thing happening in all the castes, and everybody oppresses the lowest one. So the guy who is last in the chain, he gets the most oppression.
Well said.
But it's not as if though that the people with this, we call it in the West oppression Olympics. In the oppression Olympics, no one wants to be the oppressor. So I can't see that upper caste women are sitting around identifying themselves as oppressors. That what we find in Western society is that the wealthy often try and appropriate the oppression of some other group. So for instance, a wealthy woman in New York is oppressed because a poor woman in India suffers some particular indignity. And then that somehow then gets projected back on to white men. So it kind of works its way around. That surely at the moment, with all of the identity politics that are happening in India, that are you finding that the women at the top of the caste system are feeling guilty, or are they somehow trying to offset their guilt onto another group?
Oh, about offsetting their guilt, they straight away offset everything upon the upper caste men. They have been the most privileged. They have, the upper caste women as such, They have been privileged. They have, enjoyed the fruits of their privilege. But what they say is that the caste system came in because of the patriarchy, and the patriarchy was primarily dominance of upper caste men. So when we talk about intersectionality in that way, the way you talk about in Western society, it's the same here. The upper caste women, they don't want to take any responsibility over what has happened in the past. They want to believe that they were also oppressed along with the lower caste men and women both. So that Operation Olympics happens over here also, what we call as a race to the bottom. Everybody is trying to say that they have been oppressed, and it comes down that only the upper caste, the priestly, caste men, they were the only one responsible for everything that was happening, everything bad, by the way, that was happening. You don't want to give any credit for anything that must have happened in progress, which has contributed in progress. But they will always, the identity politics ideologues, people who are in politically pushing these identity politics, they would never want anybody to say that, okay, you were also part of the privileged group. Interestingly also, what is happening now is the lower caste women, they are identifying themselves as separate from the upper caste women within feminism also. So I meet a lot of speakers who say that we are bothered, we are concerned about oppression of women, but I am not concerned about upper caste women's oppression. I am only going to focus on the lower caste women's oppression. So that intersectionality, it is coming down that there is, first there was caste based, breakup in the society, then gender came in a very rigid manner. And now when we are talking to feminists also, they want to further break their identity as, okay, oppressed lower caste women and privileged upper caste women. That's how it is happening.
So do you find situations where you have an upper caste woman who is wealthy positioning herself as equally oppressed with a poor man who's sifting through the sewer trying to unblock a sewer? Does it become that ridiculous, or
it is worse?
Where does it end?
It is not that ridiculous. It is worse because the upper caste woman, she will always put herself lower than the lower caste man who is working in the sewers, who is risking his life cleaning her shit. What she says is that, she says all the men have been oppressing women, and she is insecure, or she is running risk of being raped on the street because this lower caste man is a risk to her life. He can come up and rape her. That is the narrative that they are trying to push. So it is not just as ridiculous as she's saying that she's equally oppressed. She's saying that she's further more oppressed than the lowest caste man.
Wow. So basically the same as here.
Yes. And it is being copied all over. Whatever originates in the Western society, it is being copied. The laws are getting copied. But the worst part in India is that there are a lot of laws wherein in the Western society, wherein, let us say, a man can come out and complain to some extent. He might get a little relief in terms of domestic violence or any physical attack on him, or even in child custody matters. There is a lot of maturity, a little maturity compared to other places in the Western society. But in India, a man just cannot think about having child custody. It just does not happen unless the woman herself gives out her, the custody of the children, or, in extremely rare cases, 0.1% of cases, it might happen that a guy gets custody. Similarly, about the other things also, like it's worse than Western societies. When they're copying the laws, they're whatever there is a little bit of semblance of gender equality also, they just take it out. But they copy the Western laws and they keep it extremely biased against men.
So I've lost my question now. Oh, I know what I was going to ask. So another question, kind of more about men. Do you also have men who defend these feminists? We see that a lot, that there's men who will continue to defend these absurd ideas. Do you see that a lot there?
Of course, I mean, there are far more men who defend feminists, and very, very few men who are, thinking about like
Men's rights,
feminism. Sorry?
like men's rights, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, forget about men's rights. Even the neutral guys who would say that, okay, yeah, feminists, I mean, feminism is important, but men's rights is also important. There are very few people saying that.
Hmm.
We see a lot of resistance at every level because it's more the male feminists who want to show, who want to prove that they are, pro women, they are not anti women. Uh, and supporting feminism, they come out being far more vicious to us, and it becomes extremely difficult because of this kind of attitude amongst men, to come out and create awareness about male health or violence on men. Like about 40% of the acid attack victims in India are men, but there is not a single law to defend them. I mean, and we can't even talk about it. The moment we talk about it, we are termed as being anti-women. I mean, it's more or less, I understand, the same as what happens in Western society, but a little more worse.
Correct.
Is there any difference between the caste level of the type of men that are more likely to come out on one side or the other?
No, actually, now the good thing is that as India is focusing upon blurring out the caste lines, and there's a lot of more mix up happening. I mean, we could not even think of certain things happening about even 50 years ago, like intercaste marriages happening, and a lot of people are coming out of those kind of rigidities. So the good thing about that is I mean, feminism has affected all kind of men. I mean, we have huge industrialists also who are supporting us for the cause, and we have also people who are daily wage laborers. I mean, irrespective of the caste that they are in. So there is no caste pattern as such that we see, but yes, the awareness is more amongst the one who are educated, and what we could say is the ability or the courage to come out and speak against feminism
Right.
is more amongst people who are from the upper castes. I mean, because they were privileged to be more educated. That's the only reason. Otherwise, there is not much thing about caste as such. What we also see is that the oppression uh, happens more amongst the lower caste men from their own women. So when we talk about domestic violence, the educated people who are living in cities, the more privileged, generally the upper caste guys, they know where to go for some help, how to find help. But the lower caste guys, they are more traditionally, connected with their communities. So they have this fear of being ridiculed. They have far more fear of being ridiculed compared to a guy who has access to internet, who has access to communities like men's rights and all. So these guys in the rural areas particularly, they face a lot of domestic violence from their women, and they are not even able to come out and tell it because it is far more insulting in their society, in their circles, to come out and say that, okay, my wife beat me up. That drags them a lot down. And when we started our helpline to reach all the parts of India instead of just our cities, it was very shocking to us that 65% of the calls came from rural India. I mean, it was the first year, and the second year it kept on increasing. So the oppression happening, and the people who are trapped in violence, in abuse, those men are more from the lower caste, is what I would say.
Interesting.
And can I ask you, Amit, can you just paint me a picture of how this violence looks? So, a lot of feminists or a lot of women would just dismiss the violence against men that a woman might perpetrate. It happens here. We have this narrative, never hit a woman no matter what she does to you. Can you give an example, not an extreme one, but just your average example of what a man might go through in a rural Indian village if he's a subject of violence from his partner?
Uh, particularly if we talk about the rural, communities, there is a lot of, of course now things are changing and people are getting economically better, but there is a lot of unfulfilled aspirations. Sorry. So there is a lot of unfulfilled aspirations of men because they have limited opportunities of earning, employment, and there is a lot of uncertainty with the economy being based too much on agriculture. Like 40% of Indian economy is still based upon agriculture, which is like very unique for economies that are developing fast. So what this makes is that it makes the guy's income very uncertain, and that reflects in his respect within his household and within his community. So when a man's worthiness is decided based upon his ability to protect and provide. And when he is earning less, his aspirations are not being fulfilled. Generally, they tend to take to substance abuse, not drugs or anything, but alcohol. And this in many ways we have seen that this gives an excuse for women to be abusive to their husbands. We have had videos coming out from rural in India wherein woman is beating her husband, bleeding him, but she is excused with the only reason that, oh, he is an alcoholic, he is a drunkard. And that becomes a license for her to do anything to her. In fact, when you're talking about average cases, there are many like this. And generally it is associated with man, he not sharing his stuff outside, that he's being abused. It generally starts with verbal abuse, economic abuse of his. Then it generally tends towards physical abuse. Because like the man cannot go out and share, there is no break to this particular, the spiraling of violence on him, spiraling of abuse.
Can you provide an example of the kind of violence that woman would do to a man in such a case?
Yeah. The first one, when Gerard spoke about it, I was reminded of a video wherein a woman has actually killed her husband.
Wow.
There is a video of that, and nobody has investigated that. It's been doing rounds of social media from a long time now, but I have had people responding to it saying that probably he's an alcoholic. She is actually fighting with him and he's sleeping on the bed, just responding to her in monosyllables. She sits on him and presses his neck, pushes his throat in, and he's resisting a lot. He stops resistance. We don't know whether he has died or not, but it does seem like he's dead, and nothing has happened on that. So this is the extreme that we have seen. We tried to push it in the press media, but nobody is interested, particularly because it is of a man. It is of a lower caste, lower strata man, from the lowest economic level, and also it seems that he's drunk, so everything is excused. So those kind of shocking images are there. Yeah.
That's actually a bit of a segue into my question, which is the second question that we have. I thought long and hard about the questions that I would ask. And it all really came down to me to the fact that I can ask for a men's rights activist to come and talk to us, and I'll get someone. But our chances of ever getting a feminist to come and talk to us are zero, because there just is no, no matter what the terms were, we just wouldn't get a feminist to agree to come and talk rationally to us. And we would be more than respectful to her, and we would try and ask her, two hard questions. Now, a friend of mine said something interesting to me the other day. We were discussing something on Facebook, and he said, "I'm so sick of women saying to me, this is not up for discussion." And when I thought about that, the funny thing is, if I put a face on that woman, I see an Indian woman for some reason.
That's right.
It's something that we all experience. So my question to you, and sorry if it's a long one, is firstly, how do men talk about gender equality and what happens to men when feminists just refuse to participate in that discussion? And a second part of that question is that, in a sense, I feel that feminists have colonized the area of gender. And as an Indian, you know, someone who grew up in a country post-colonization, what do you think Indians could help men understand about how to decolonize gender equality?
Okay. So if we talk about, I mean, men in India, how they, and the opposition that women, feminists give to the kind of things that they say that, okay, this is out of discussion. So we have had such experiences wherein we have gone to universities for debates, and it actually depends upon the moderator. If the moderator is neutral, then it becomes a rational debate. Otherwise, it's always about women, being oppressed from ages and so on. So I have had, particularly I got reminded of one thing when we were like kind of winning the debate. I mean, because the audience was, more responsive to our arguments positively. And the feminist, when she came on stage, she must not have thought about kind of rational arguments that she'll see against her, because they are very used to being, just walking through people, because they have one thing that, okay, women are being burned for dowry, which is again, we've been saying that this is exaggerated far more than it happens. Like there is claim that about 25,000 women are burned for dowry every year in India, which is just absurd. Absolutely, fake about it. Not getting into that, about this part, it is like when we were in a debate, and we were talking about men's rights and all. The feminist actually just said that this is the last time I'm going to talk to a men's rights activist. They just don't want to talk to us now. Or she does not even want to participate in a debate where a men's rights activist will come, or any counter argument to her statements can be given. So that is the kind of, if you say they have their own hold over the narrative, they don't want to have any other discussions happening. And this we see in every single medium of communication, of awareness that we put up, even on the social media, or when we go to TV debates. If a feminist is losing, she will come down to saying that, oh, but women have been oppressed since ages. That is the password that she has to just escape out of that situation. And generally the moderators and everyone, they just allow them to go out. So that is one part of the question that you were asking. The other part, I just missed that part. You were asking about, okay, how Indian men can help about breaking the shackles of colonization. Yeah.
No, I just see that, I imagine that if you're a colonized people, you really don't get a say in the narrative. That, I can't imagine that the British, when they colonized, India, came along with a narrative that was all that particularly, accommodating of Indians. And for Indians to overcome that colonization, took a huge struggle, and really a fight just to have a say in India's future. I can see some parallels there with what really all men are going through, and it's not just men; it's women as well. That the majority of women are not feminists. Right. Even those women don't have a say. So if feminists own the franchise of gender equality, and the majority of people are not feminists or against feminists, how do those people have a rational discussion when they're completely blocked from having that discussion?
Right. Yeah, so actually, this is a very interesting question. And when we started off our movement and all, so for us, the ideal was actually the freedom movement that we had. And if, I mean, you must be knowing about the Indian freedom movement. There was a lot of non-violence, activities that were done. They were just, pure non-violent resistance that Indian freedom struggle had adopted. So it was, again, at that time also was all about awareness. So I have my grandfather who was, working as a freedom activist, freedom fighter. So he used to go around in the villages singing ballads about what will come once there is independence. Okay, but whatever he thought, it did not come, of course. But there was this idea about making people aware that something is wrong right now and it can be corrected. So that is something we are also trying to take forward. We do a lot of activities like street protest. I mean, street protests are quite famous or quite popular in India for all kind of causes. In some cities, rather, I think in most of the cities, there are certain public spaces which are, secured, which are always kept free for people coming in and protesting. I mean, that might sound, I don't know how it is in other cities, but that might sound a little weird, but there are...
No, interestingly, in the United Kingdom, in Hyde Park, there's a corner there, Speaker's Corner, where it's like a free speech zone. And even on US campuses where, free speech is guaranteed everywhere, the universities have a concession, which is a free speech zone where you can have free speech. So I don't think it's a unique thing to India, but it's good to know that you have these things.
Yeah. So what used to happen is that there used to be a lot of protests. So the municipality of all these, the governance, they came up and said that, okay, instead of protesting everywhere, we'll give them place from where we can also hear them. So there is, the government is supposed to go to those places every day and check out who all is protesting. And their depositions are taken to the government. So we have done that. So we do a lot of protests every year. That is one way to get into the media and highlight our issues. Over the time, a lot of celebrities were affected with this. People who have, who hold some popular narrative, they were affected with these cases, these false cases being filed on them. So they joined us, and that brought a lot of traction. There is this marathon that is run in our city in Mumbai. What we do is we take out huge props. I mean, we had once taken a huge serpent. We called it as Serpent of Misandry. It was a 14 feet long snake.
I love it.
Yeah. So we had this poster saying that Serpent of Misandry gobbles up men, and patriarchy is not bad only on women, it's bad on men as well. So we had all these messages coming out. So we were about 250 people protesting there. And that caught up a lot of attention. And now we participate in that every year. We have changed the symbols every year. We try to bring in messages which people will relate to. Like the Indian government has a Make in India concept. They want to push manufacturing in India and all. So they have this lion which is made up of gears and mechanical stuff. They show that, okay, we will have to start manufacturing and go ahead. So what we showed was that the manufacturing lion as such, we showed arrows stuck onto it with all the different laws that affect men. And our message was that if productivity is affecting men through false accusations, then how will you make in India? So that also caught up a lot of attention and all. So similarly, in every city, we do some sort of activities. And these dharnas, I mean, we call them as dharnas. Dharna is actually, the literal meaning in English is holding. Okay. So we hold attention through this, then disseminate our information through the media. We get a lot of success through that. We do a lot of Twitter activity on social media. We are able to trend our hashtags. whenever we group together. So we do that. We have been, I mean, our protests, our way of creating awareness is similar to what is done in Western societies. In terms of International Men's Day and Father's Day. We also have Boys' Day, Husband's Day being celebrated. Just not these two. When one very interesting thing and very successful thing that we did was, there is this UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is a railway station, and it is lit with different colors every day. And when there was attack in France, so all the UNESCO World Heritage Sites had this French flag. The lights were lit in the colors of French flag. So we have been able to get that particular World Heritage Site lit in blue every year on International Men's Day.
That's
So
great.
so that brings a lot of attention, and this is something I think should be replicated all over. I mean, the Sydney Harbour Bridge being lit in blue on Men's Day, that will be like grabbing attention on a very high scale. Similarly, if we could do with Eiffel Tower, with the Liberty Statue and all, that will be something awesome that we'll be looking up to.
Are there very many women involved in the men's rights there?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, one very interesting statistic is that the number of women arrested by Britishers and put in jail, in their 150 years of colonial rule in India, compared to that, the number of women who are accused of false cases and put in jail is higher in just the past 30 years. So a lot of women are affected because of these false accusations. Like there is this dowry harassment law that we have. Dowry is a concept wherein, it started off at something else again, and it's being used in a different form altogether. In one way, it is a woman's share in her paternal property. When she is getting married, the parents give her the share. But eventually, it came down to being that a guy would marry if he's getting more dowry. That was what was propagated. So there was this law against this harassment. And the situation is such that a woman can go to a police station and just say that I am being harassed by my husband and his family. So whomever she names, they are put in jail immediately.
Wow.
The situation was so bad that 95-year-old senior citizens who are in ICU in a hospital, they were also named, and the police goes and arrests them as soon as they are discharged from the ICU. They just take to the jail. There is a case in Mumbai itself wherein a 2-month-old baby has been charged with dowry harassment. Can you believe this?
No, that's outrageous.
So it is of that level of ridiculousness. I mean, the charge was that it used to wake up in the night purposely to harass that woman who filed this case because she has not given dowry. So the misuse of these laws is to this extreme. And when a lot of women are affected, they do join our movement. They do help us with our activities, but still the percentage is very, very less. It is. I mean, I can just count on fingers. It would be about a couple of dozen women who must have joined us for activism and taking things to.
Interestingly, it was a woman who I asked originally to be in this interview because I didn't know you, and the woman referred me to you, which is good, and that's something that's very different in to the men's rights movement in the West, which tends to be dominated by 30-year-old women. That men feel that men aren't listened to. So men will basically support women. I find that sort of quite intellectually dishonest. That you're essentially using women to get the message out that men need help. But it sounds to me like in India, men are actually stepping up and doing it the hard way. They're not thrusting women out in front of the battle to fight their battles for them. They're doing it themselves.
Right. In India too, I mean, See, what we are looking out is that, okay, the popularity might not come to the men's activist, the male men's activist immediately also. Our main concern is building a community. So when we are building community, we are focusing upon our weekly meetings, helping people with their legal issues, their psychological issues, trying to create emotional bonding so that they have some sort of emotional support when they need. So that is our primary focus. Our focus is not, I mean, of course, we want to create awareness and all, but that comes as a secondary level. We want to reach out to men who need help. Interestingly, in India as well, the more popular men's rights activists are females. I mean, when we see that following on Twitter or following on social media, and we don't have any problem with that as such. But what happens is many a times what we feel is men are able to take the ideology far more clearly than when a woman is representing men.
Okay.
So in this way we have been pushing ourselves, coming out, and really there are like the one you mentioned, the Indrabir auntie. She is also part of our group. She's cooperating with us, but she understands when it comes to ideology and talking about men's issues, it should be men talking about it. That's how it has been working, thankfully.
And where do you see, I think there's a saying which is, I think, incorrectly attributed to Gandhi. It says something about first they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then they do something else, and then you've won.
Well, then they fear you. That's the last one. They fear you.
Is that Amit, are you familiar with the...
It is like this. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, and then they fight you, and then you win.
Okay, yeah. So that's the saying, and apparently it wasn't Gandhi who said that, but if you look at that, which I think is very true, what phase do you think we're up to, which in really is a fight against feminist overreach? Where are we at now? Are we at ignored? Are we at laughed at? Are we at fighting? Where are we at in that struggle?
It is at different level within the men's issues also. Like if we talk about child custody, then they have stopped ignoring us, and also to some level the ridicule is out of it. They are not laughing at us. They are saying it is a more politically correct demand about child custody, that there should be shared parenting. If we talk about domestic violence, then they have stopped ignoring us. Now they are laughing at us. We are fighting in certain areas also, like men's health, for example. We are coming out. I mean, first they ignored and then they laughed about it, but then there is not much to laugh when we say that more prostate cancer patients are dying compared to breast cancer patients, and the funding is not equal, or it is not proportionate. So there is not much to laugh at that. That's the reason they are fighting us, saying that, oh, but men already own a lot of property. So if we consider it as on different stages, but overall they have stopped laughing at us. Now they are a little scared.
Okay,
that's what I would say.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha. Well, they were terrific answers, so I'm satisfied. Eric, it looks like your video's dropped out.
Thanks.
Do you want to fire the final question to Amit?
Absolutely. So Amit, my last question is this, and what we're looking for is something a little bit deeper than a generic answer. We're looking for something that's more grounded in reality. And my question is this: if there is one thing you can change in this world, what would it be and why?
Okay. If I could change something, my waking hours have already, most of them have been spent for the issue of men's from the past 10 years. So I'm doing a lot of work related to this, and I see a lot of harassment that men go through, a lot of issues that men go through, and it affects men and women both. So my answer will be related to this arena, this area of men's for gender issues only. If I could change one thing is that I would want men to accept that they are weak, or they can be weak at some times. As Warren Farrell says, the biggest strength that women have, that they are considered weak, and the biggest weakness that men have, that they are considered strong. So if at least men can accept that, okay, they can be weak and they can come out and talk about it, I think that is what I would, that would satisfy me, because then everything will roll. Nobody can stop it at that point. So awareness within men, that's what I would say.
That's an interesting. I just want to follow up on that, because it sounds in a sense that Indian men are slightly behind Western men on this, and it's one of those things. Be careful what you wish for. What Western men are what Western men are finding is that now that they are showing weakness and they are talking about their problems, that women just don't have the skill to deal with these things, or that women will try and make that problem somehow how about them. And that then really antagonizes men, because having been told their whole life by feminists that they need to be more feminine and they need to show emotion and open up, they then open up and show emotion, and then the very same women ridicule them and almost bully them back to not being vulnerable anymore. Are you not at that phase in India yet?
Yes, in India, it's still at the phase wherein men need to learn to come out, come out and openly. But I would like to say something over here. Showing emotions does not necessarily mean that they are weak. I mean, that is how we would like to put it. We don't have to come out and say, when I meant that men have to accept their weaknesses, it does not mean that they come out chest beating, wailing, like what feminists have done, trying to show themselves as victims. It is about realization that you can be wrong, you can be vulnerable, you can have emotions. So at least the suicide part, in India, every 7 minutes, one man commits suicide, and around 65,000 married men commit suicide every year. So even if we are able to push that back, that is a huge thing. One thing I would mention over here, which I keep telling, if you see the film 10,000 BC, there is a tribal leader in that amongst all the people, and somebody cracks a joke and he doesn't laugh. So this guy asks him, why are you not laughing? Didn't you find this joke humorous enough? The discussion is something on those lines. So the tribal leader says that I am the leader. I am not supposed to show any emotion. I am not supposed to laugh or cry. So what I would say is that it has taken 10,000 years for men to accept that they can laugh. Now our job is that they can cry, or they can show their emotions and still be okay with it. So that is something I would like to happen.
And that, in a sense, that's a lot more independent thinking, because what you're saying is that men should show their emotions not because women demand it, but because men deserve that right.
Because y'all have a right, exactly.
Right. So that is like, if we take the emotions, I just meant that if we take the emotions out, then we are dehumanizing men. So men have been actually dehumanized since 10,000 BC. We are only trying to make them more human. That's all.
Well put.
Yeah.
You could open a whole new conversation on this, I think.
Right.
It's been terrific.
Yes.
Thanks so much. It's been awesome for me also. Thank you.